was 24, younger than you are now. But times were different then. I was a man at that age, the master of a large plantation just south of New Orleans. I had lost my wife in childbirth. She and the infant had been buried less than half a year. I would have been happy to join them. I couldn't bear the pain of their loss. I longed to be released from it.
Happy Halloween, Scenesters! This is our first Halloween together, and there are no shortage of spooky, scary, or Halloween-themed movies to talk about, and with a lot of wonderful subject matter to analyze. This is Psychology in Movies, and I am Movie Review Justin. And here at Psychology in Movies, we take pop psychology concepts and use movies as our examples to help explain them. Here's a topic and movie I've always wanted to do. I have had this video in my head since before this channel was ever a thing. Today we are talking about the great 1994 movie Interview with the Vampire and its major theme of depression as exhibited by the film's main protagonist, Louis. We want to thank you for being here. If it's your first time, that's wonderful. And if you're returning, thank you for checking out more of my videos. If it's not too much trouble, please like and subscribe by clicking the buttons below because this helps the channel grow and reach more people. We try to spread positive and informative messages, as well as share a passion for great movies. And we picked a great one for our first Halloween video together, Interview with the Vampire, based on the novel by Anne Rice. For context, our movie is about a vampire Louis, but he wasn't always a vampire. Born in the late 18th century, Louis was lord of an estate, but destiny takes away his wife and newborn right before the movie begins. Grief-stricken, Louis wanders about aimless with no purpose and seeking death as a release. Ironically, he meets a vampire, who instead offers him the chance to be immortal. You would think that having this exciting new life would solve so many of his problems, but instead you find out... When I was a kid, I loved this movie, but the themes of depression went right over my head, and I think that this might be typical for a small percentage of people. Like a lot of people, I was sucked into this movie's burning beauty and the seemingly glamorous lifestyle of being immortal, fabulously wealthy, crazy good-looking. I mean, I could just go on and on. That's why the first thing I want to bring up when we talk about depression is our internal fallacies of assuming that because a person is young, good-looking, or rich, or all of the above, that they can't have problems or get depressed. And I just assumed that's how vampires acted, that they were just wanting to be dramatic and full of melancholy. So the first fallacy we have to overcome is the assumption that just because somebody seems really cool or attractive doesn't mean that they live this perfect life or perfect existence with no problems. Anyone can become depressed. If we watch closely, we can see our friend Louis has a lot of problems and issues. So what is depression? To put it succinctly, depression is when some major event or change happens which causes grief in a person, grief being an operative word. Or when there's little to no hope of things ever going back to the way that they were. Losing a loved one can be depressing. Breakups can be depressing. Things changing in ways we don't like can be depressing, but so can feeling stuck and feeling like things will never change or get better. So being incarcerated can be depressing. Being single or lonely can be depressing. And we will go over some of the reasons Louis is depressed here in a bit. Depression's trademark effect is that it causes us to lose energy, lose enthusiasm for things or hobbies we used to be excited about, and make it hard for us to feel happy or excited about anything. It can make us feel sad, ruminate, cause guilt, avoid healthy habits, and cultivating unhealthy ones to deal with the stress of depression. And yes, depression is a type of stress on our bodies and minds, just like being sick, injured, tired, etc. Whereas anxiety is the fear of something that hasn't happened yet, depression is a type of pain created by something in the past. It's the feeling of sadness from desperately wanting something to go back to the way things were before something changed, or being stuck in a predicament. So, what makes Louis depressed? Let's start a counter. For starters, early it establishes Louis as having lost his wife and child, which is the original impetus that starts him on this sadness journey. From there, he meets a vampire and becomes one, hoping to solve his problems and give him release, excitement, purpose, adventure. Instead, he finds that the reality of being a vampire is not at all what he expected. You have to understand that Louis doesn't want to be a vampire in the sense of that he doesn't want to kill or hurt people. He's not like Lestat, who loves being a vampire. Look at this guy. Look how happy he is. But for Louis, killing fills him with immense shame and regret and reminds him of the trauma of losing his family. Because of his condition, Louis can never make real friends with any humans and is unaware of any other vampires for the majority of the movie. The only other vampire Louis knows is Lestat, who completely lacks any empathy and goes out of his way to torment and play games with Louis' emotions. Louis was always afraid of making more vampires and cursing them to a similar existence as his. And when he does make Claudia into a vampire, for a bit this gives him a little bit of purpose. But then Louis fails to protect her and she ends up dying, thus giving Louis even more reason to be depressed. His whole life is just an echo of loss. There are probably tons more reasons, like how Louis will never be able to enjoy bacon or ice cream ever again. We don't really know the full extent at which he misses certain things, or regrets being a vampire, or feels guilty over specific people that he's murdered, etc. Suffice it to say that Louis exhibits all the classic traits: self-isolating, pervasive and chronic sadness, lacking desire to socialize. At times, he exhibits poor impulse control. This can be akin to getting depressed and eating like a pint of Haagen-Dazs or a box of Twinkies. Sleeping a lot. Lacking energy. Falling into hedonism. Feeling worthless. We're not going to go too in-depth with ways to get out of depression, but we'll list a few. Basically, we want to try and stay active and healthy by eating right and getting rest. We want to avoid drugs or alcohol and seek after positive connections, even if it's just asking for help. Set small goals and learn to sit with your emotions instead of reacting to them. But getting out of depression is such a personal journey, in my opinion, that it's hard to give general advice. I think the biggest thing is finding something new to treat with importance and interest. It could be a new hobby or friend group, maybe a social cause, or pursuing some higher education. As to what specifically, it would be unique upon each individual or person. A big motivation for the concept of this story was the author Anne Rice had lost her daughter. Her daughter died, and it filled her with such a profound sadness and depression that later, she wrote her novel Interview with the Vampire partially as a means of exploring some of these themes of loss and depression. The character Claudia is supposed to represent her daughter Michelle that passed away. Here at Psychology in Movies, we wanted to show that even our favorite characters can have problems. They can have character flaws, or even just normal circumstances can hold them back from their true potential. This has been Movie Review Justin. If you've gotten this far and want to follow for more psychology and movie fun, give us a like and follow if you haven't already. If you're a returning viewer or subscriber, thank you so much. Your support is why I do this. Just a reminder to stay healthy and informed.
Vampires have had a pretty bad rap. We're not these mopey old creatures who live in castles. And well, most of us are, a lot are. But there are also those of us who like to flat together in really small countries like New Zealand.
Don't ever talk with your eyes.